My husband, Xiao Ju, the one renowned for his battle exploits, knelt before my imperial father's sickbed, bringing with him his beautiful mistress, 3 months pregnant. He wasn't there to beg for forgiveness, but to request an official title for her. Your Majesty, I and Ruyan are deeply in love, and she carries my child within her. I implore your Majesty, in consideration of my bloodshed and injuries for the sake of the great Xia Empire, to grant Ruyan a proper status and to secure a future for my unborn child. His voice boomed, his bearing proud, as if he wasn't seeking a favor but demanding a rightfully earned reward. The hall was filled with imperial physicians, palace servants, and several regent ministers, all with their heads lowered. The immense bedchamber was so quiet that the faint crackling of the incense burning in the censer could be heard. Everyone's gaze, intentionally or unintentionally, fell upon me, Zhao Yining, the great Xia dynasty's only crown princess and Xiao Ju's lawfully wedded wife. I didn't look at him, nor did I acknowledge the smug smile on the face of the woman named Lu Ruyan. I merely gazed silently at my father on the dragon bed, his body ravaged by illness and reduced to skin and bones. Watching how the light in his clouded eyes dimmed, inch by inch, I knew Xiao Ju's performance had begun, and I was the best audience for this play. I had been married to Xiao Ju for 5 years. For the first 3 years, he was stationed guarding the northern border, and we were separated most of the time, communicating only through letters. In his letters, he would describe the sunsets over the desert, recount the brutality of the battlefield, and awkwardly add at the end, seeing the words is like seeing the person. Do not worry. At that time, I truly believed that I had married for love and had married the hero of Great Xia. He was from a humble background, and with his own blade and spear, he had carved out a bloody path for himself, rising to the rank of general of the cavalry, and was praised as Great Xia's invincible god of war. My father held him in high regard, overcoming all objections to betroth me, his only legitimate princess and future crown princess. To him, the entire court, civil and military, and the people of the world, all said it was a match made in heaven. The turning point occurred the year he returned to court after his victory. My father's health was failing day by day, and he entrusted part of the military and political affairs to me and several regent ministers. Xiao Ju, on the other hand, was kept in the capital by my father, ostensibly to rest and recuperate, but in reality, to gradually transfer the military power in his hands to the central government. It was inevitable that a hero would feel lost after laying down his armor. I understood him, and I was considerate of him. I washed my hands to make soup for him, managed the affairs of the household for him, and even took the initiative to propose to my father that he assist in the defense of the capital area to put his mind at ease. I thought my gentleness and concessions could smooth out the rifts in his heart, but I forgot that power is the strongest wine in the world, and once tasted, it can never be given up. I first learned of Lu Ruyan's existence at a palace banquet. That day, the son of the Minister of Personnel had had a few too many drinks and got into an argument with someone. In the scuffle, he accidentally spilled a cup of wine all over a dancer next to me. The dancer was wearing a gauze dress as thin as cicada wings, and when the wine soaked through, her figure was fully revealed, immediately drawing gasps of surprise, just as I was about to order someone to take her down to change. Xiao Ju stood up before I could. He took off his outer robe and, without a word, draped it over the dancer, wrapping her up completely. Then, he turned around, his hawk-like eyes staring coldly at the minister's son. Apologized to her. 3 words, resounding and forceful, carried the air of 1,000 soldiers. The minister's son was so frightened that he sobered up halfway, scrambling to his knees to apologize. A murmur swept through the room. Everyone sensed that something was wrong. What virtue or ability did a mere dancer possess to make our general of the vanguard so furious? At that moment, my heart sank to the bottom. On the carriage back to the manor after the banquet, there was a deathly silence. Her name is Lu Ruyan. In the end, I was the one who spoke first. Yes. Xiao Ju's voice was very calm, without a trace of guilt. How long has this been going on? 1/2 year. I closed my eyes, feeling a fishy sweetness rising in my throat. Do you know that I am your wife? The crown princess of the dynasty. You have made this known to everyone. Where do you place my dignity? Where do you place the dignity of the imperial family? Dignity. Xiao Ju suddenly sneered. A laugh filled with sarcasm and disdain that I had never heard before. Yi Ning. You are the crown princess. Born with everything. Do you know how much scorn I endured and how many cold blades I faced to climb to where I am today? While I was fighting for the country in the northern frontier, risking my life, you were in the warm palace learning to arrange flowers and make tea. The achievements I earned with my life, in your eyes, are only worth exchanging for dignity. He leaned closer to me, his breath, mixed with the scent of wine and an unfamiliar fragrance, enveloped me. I respect you. I love you. But that doesn't mean I should be leashed like a dog, forever bound by you and the Zhao imperial family behind you. Lu Rian. I want her to stand by my side openly and honestly. I want everyone to know that I, Xiao Ju, am not an appendage of anyone. At that moment, I finally understood. What he wanted was never my understanding and consideration. What he wanted was the power to stand against me on equal footing. The privilege to be above the rules. And that Lu Rian was just a pawn he used to challenge me and test the limits of my imperial father. I didn't argue with him anymore, because I knew that when a man starts talking to you about his merits instead of his feelings, it's already over between you. I simply opened my eyes and, through the dimly lit carriage window, looked out at the dark night outside. The wind in the capital is about to rise. The silence within the palace was broken by the emperor's violent coughing. Eunuch Wang hurried forward to pat his back and soothe his breathing. Xiao Ju remained kneeling upright, the stubbornness and fervor in his eyes making my heart run cold. He was certain that the emperor was seriously ill and unable to restrain him. And he was even more certain that the emperor would tolerate him again and again in light of his distinguished military achievements. Your Majesty. Lu Rian opened her mouth delicately and weakly. A pair of beautiful eyes filled with tears, about to fall but not falling. This concubine dares not ask for any status, only that the child can be recognized by the clan, and in the future, he can be like his father. Expanding the territory for Great Xia. What a expanding the territory for Great Xia. She was reminding the emperor of Xiao Ju's value, even more blatantly telling me that the son she bore would inherit Xiao Ju's mantle in the future. I finally made a move. I slowly stood up and walked to Xiao Ju's side, looking down at him condescendingly. Husband. I called him softly, my voice not loud, but clearly reaching the ears of everyone present. Father's dragon body is unwell and needs rest. Whatever you need, tell me. It's the same. Xiao Ju raised his head, meeting my gaze. There was not a trace of affection between husband and wife in his eyes. Only cold scrutiny and a hint of imperceptible provocation. Tell you, Yi Ning. I'm afraid you can't make the decision on this matter. Oh. I raised my eyebrows slightly, a faint arc appearing at the corner of my lips. I am the crown princess of Great Xia, the crown prince personally appointed by the emperor. In this world, apart from the emperor's longevity, is there anything I cannot make a decision on? My voice was very soft, but every word was like a needle, piercing his most prized pride. I saw his face instantly darken, and the hand holding Lu Rian's tightened involuntarily. Lu Rian cried out softly in pain, looking at him pitifully. Yi Ning. Xiao Ju's tone carried a warning. Do you have to compete with me at this time? It's not that I want to compete. It's you who are forcing me to compete. I suppressed my smile, my gaze turning cold inch by inch. Xiao Ju. This is the inner court of the palace, not your general's mansion. You brought a woman of unknown origin, and the seed of unknown origin in her womb, and made wild remarks before the emperor's sickbed. Who exactly hasn't distinguished between the superior and the inferior? You. Xiao Ju suddenly stood up, his tall body carrying an oppressive aura. The guards in the hall swished and drew half of their sabers. The atmosphere instantly tense. All of you, stand down, I shouted sternly. Upon hearing this, the guards uniformly returned their sabers to their sheaths. This subtle action made Xiao Ju's pupils shrink violently. he might have realized that within this forbidden palace, the one who could truly command everything was not him, the great general who wielded military power, but me, the seemingly weak crown princess. Xiao Ju, for the sake of the emperor, I will call you husband one last time. I took a step forward, standing face to face with him, and said in a voice that only the two of us could hear, I can pretend that today's events never happened. Now, take her and get out. Otherwise, bear the consequences. My eyes were calm and waveless, like a pool of bottomless cold water. Xiao Ju stared at me intently, seeming to want to see a trace of fear or retreat on my face. But he failed. He only saw a cold, unquestionable decisiveness. After a long while, he squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth. Good. Very good. He pulled up Lu Rian, who was still stunned on the ground, and strode out of the palace without looking back. In the moment he turned, I saw the fleeting disappointment in the eyes of several ministers. They were Xiao Ju's people. They were also actors in today's play. But unfortunately, I cut it short ahead of time. I ignored them, turned around and returned to my father's bedside, tucking him in. My father's eyes were half open, half closed. I didn't know if he was asleep or awake. Father, don't worry. Your son is here. The sky of this great Xia will not be chaotic, I whispered. My father's finger twitched slightly. Xiao Ju still brought Lu Rian into the general of the vanguard's mansion. He didn't give her a title, but gave her a dignity second only to me. The legal wife. He gave her the best courtyard in the mansion, listening to Snow Pavilion, and the furnishings inside were all in accordance with the standards of a commandery princess. The day the news came, I was pruning a pot of clivia. Eunuch Wang, standing behind me, muttered indignantly, Your Majesty, this General Xiao is going too far. This is not taking a concubine. This is clearly slapping your face. Slapping the face of the imperial family. I snapped sound, cut off a withered yellow leaf, and said lightly, Let him be, if he wants to act. He always needs a decent stage. Isn't listening to Snow Pavilion just right? Eunuch Wang was stunned, not understanding what I meant. I didn't explain, but ordered, Go, prepare a generous gift and send it to listening to Snow Pavilion. Just say that I, as the mistress, congratulate Miss Lu on her housewarming. Your Majesty. Eunuch Wang was anxious. Go. I waved my hand. Also, tell the people in the mansion that from now on, when you see Miss Lu, you should treat her with the same respect as you treat me. Give her whatever she wants. Listen to whatever she says. Do not neglect her in any way. Although Eunuch Wang was full of doubts, he still obeyed the order and left. Xiao Ju held a grand banquet for Lu Rian's move to her new residence. Almost all the officials with a bit of influence in the capital received invitations. This was no longer a family matter. But Xiao Ju was declaring his attitude to the entire court. To go was to side with Xiao Ju. Not to go was to be his enemy. Of course, I also received an invitation, which Xiao Ju handed to me personally. Yi Ning, you are the mistress of the general's mansion. You should be there that night. He stood in front of me, his tone calm, but with an imposing force that allowed no refusal. Okay, I only replied with one word. That night of the banquet, I dressed in full regalia. I wore the phoenix feather bright light dress that my father had personally bestowed upon me when I came of age, and wore a 9-bend purple gold hairpin, step by step, into that home that had become so unfamiliar. When I arrived, the mansion was already full of distinguished guests, with laughter and cheerful chatter. Xiao Ju was accompanying a group of military generals in hearty drinking, while Lu Rian was surrounded by a group of officials' wives. Like a delicate flower surrounded by stars, she was wearing a watered long dress. Her abdomen was already slightly bulging, and she had a happy and shy smile on her face, talking to everyone. Seeing me come in, the noise in the hall stopped instantly. All eyes were focused on me. There was sympathy, pity, schadenfreude, and cold indifference. Xiao Ju's expression changed slightly, as if he didn't expect me to dress so formally. Lu Rian was also stunned. She subconsciously puffed out her belly, as if declaring sovereignty. I looked straight ahead. walked directly to the head seat and sat down. Then picked up my wine glass and raised it to everyone in a distant toast. Today is the auspicious day for Miss Lu to enter the mansion. I am here to offer a toast to everyone. I also wish Miss Lu to give birth to a son for the general soon, and to carry on the family line from my Shao family. My voice was clear and bright, with a hint of a smile, as if I really was a virtuous and generous mistress. Everyone looked at each other, somewhat at a loss. Xiao Ju took a deep look at me, picked up his wine glass, and drank it in one gulp. The banquet resumed its lively atmosphere, but the mood became strange. Lu Ruyan was choked by my sentence to carry on the family line for my Shao family and couldn't speak for a long time, only managing to force a smile and sit down next to Xiao Ju. During the banquet, she constantly served Xiao Ju food and spoke to him in a delicate voice, her every move a demonstration of power to me. I ignored her, only chatting with the ladies beside me. Sitting next to me was Imperial Censor Wei Fuse's wife. Lord Wei is a well-known purist in the court, upright and unyielding, and has always been a loyal supporter of my imperial father. Your Highness, the Crown Princess, you have been wronged, Madame Wei said to me in a low voice. I smiled and lowered my voice, saying, Madame Wei is too serious. It is in times of wind and rain that the virtue of pine and cypress is revealed. Some things must be brought to the surface before they can be seen clearly, mustn't they? Madame Wei was taken aback, then nodded thoughtfully. I picked up my teacup and took a small sip. The tea is good tea, but unfortunately, the person who brewed it has a muddied heart. Xiao Ju, you think that by setting up the stage and inviting the guests, you can perform a good show of you seizing power alone. You are wrong. I will write the script for this play, and you and your Lu Ruyan are just pawns in my hands. Late at night, the general's mansion's clamor dissipated. I didn't return to my empty main courtyard, but instead, carrying a lamp, came alone to the study. This was once the place where Xiao Ju and I spent the most time. He would handle military affairs, and I would read books beside him. Sometimes, he would suddenly stop writing, hug me from behind, rest his chin on my shoulder, and say lazily, Yi Ning, it's so good to have you. Now, things have changed. On the desk, a map of the Jingji defense is still spread out. The locations circled in red ink are all aimed at the Imperial Palace. I reached out and gently stroked those cold markings. My eyes filled with silence. Creak, the door was pushed open, and a tall figure appeared in the doorway. It was Eunuch Wang. He dismissed those around him and quickly walked up to me, bowing respectfully. Your Majesty, the things you instructed have all been taken care of. Speak. Lee's rice shop in the west of the city is the property of Lord Lee, the Minister of Personnel. In the past 3 months, their accounts have shown an additional 50,000 taels of silver in unexplained transactions, which went to a private residence in the south of the city. The owner of that residence is Wang Qi, the Deputy General under General Shao. Lord Zhang, the Vice Minister of Revenue, hosted several salt merchants from Jiangnan at the Tsuiyin Tower outside the city last month. During the banquet, he personally promised to help them obtain the exclusive rights to the next batch of government salt, on the condition that they split the profits 3-7, and the Ministry of War. Eunuch Wang reported item by item, and the names he mentioned were all resounding and influential figures in the court. And now, they all had a common name: Xiao Ju's henchmen. This intelligence was gathered by Eunuch Wang, at my command, using the secret network left by my mother, and it took nearly half a year to collect. My mother came from a prominent family in Jiangnan. When she married my father, she not only brought immense wealth but also an intelligence network spanning the country. After my mother passed away, this network was handed over to me. Over the years, I have kept it well hidden and never used it, because I knew that it should never be revealed unless absolutely necessary. And now, the time has come. Minister Li, Vice Minister Zhang. I whispered these names, a cold smile curling on my lips. They are so eager to pave the way for their new master. Your Majesty, now that the evidence is conclusive, should we? Eunuch Wang made a gesture of arresting. I shook my head. Not enough, I said. Moving against them now would only alert the snake in the grass. Xiaoju is a big tree. And these people are just leaves on his branches. What I want is not to trim the branches, but to uproot the whole tree. Then, what should we do? I walked to the map of the capital's defense and pointed to a place circled in red ink. This is the Shishan camp, responsible for guarding the west side of the imperial city. The commander is Zhao Qua. He is a fellow townsman of Xiaoju and his confidant. I paused and continued. Xiaoju will definitely try to replace the entire defense of the capital with his own people next. And the Shishan camp is his first target. Your Majesty means, if he wants to replace them, let him. I smiled coldly. But who takes over is up to us. I took out a secret letter from my sleeve and handed it to Eunuch Wang. Find a way to deliver this to Lord Wei of the Censorate. Remember, do it without anyone knowing. Eunuch Wang took the letter and nodded solemnly. Also, I turned and looked at the dark night outside the window. Tell our people to keep a close eye on Tingxua Pavilion. The flesh in Lu Ruin's belly is our most important bargaining chip. Eunuch Wang's heart tightened, and he bowed in agreement, retreating silently. In the study, I was alone again. I looked at my long, stretched shadow under the candlelight, and a chill crept up from the depths of my heart. Zhao Yining, in the end, you still became the kind of person you least wanted to be. Ruthless, suspicious, and calculating. But if I didn't, how could I protect this Zhao family's empire? How could I live up to my father's trust? And how could I make those covetous wolves pay the price they deserved? Xiaoju, it was you who pushed me step by step to where I am today. Then don't blame me for being ruthless. As expected, 3 days later, at the early morning court, Xiaoju stepped forward and reported that Zhao Qua, the garrison general of the Shishan camp, had been overworked recently, and his old injuries had relapsed, requesting His Majesty to allow him to return home to recuperate. At the same time, he recommended his trusted lieutenant, Wang Qi, to take over as the garrison general of the Shishan camp. As soon as these words came out, the court was immediately filled with discussion. Everyone knew how important the geographical location of the Shishan camp was. Once it fell into Xiaoju's hands, it would be like opening the west gate of the imperial city to him. He has revealed his true intentions. Several assisting ministers looked worried, but they did not dare to openly object. After all, the reason Xiaoju recommended was plausible. On the dragon throne, my father's complexion was worse than it had been in the past few days. He leaned back in the chair, only slightly lifting his eyelids, as if he didn't have the strength to speak. Xiaoju's followers were even more unscrupulous when they saw this. Minister Li of the Ministry of Personnel immediately stepped forward and seconded the proposal. Your Majesty, General Xiao is right. General Wang Qi is brave and good at fighting. If he takes over the Shishan camp, he will definitely ensure the safety of the capital. Vice Minister Zhang of the Ministry of Revenue also chimed in. Yes, Your Majesty. National affairs are important. General Zhao is unwell and should find someone to replace him as soon as possible. For a time, nearly half of the people in the court were speaking for Wang Qi. Xiaoju stood in the hall with a confident smile on his face, his eyes glancing at me, seemingly unintentionally. That look was full of provocation. He thought I had no way to deal with it. At this moment, Imperial Censor Wei Zheng, holding a jade tablet, slowly stepped forward. Your Majesty, I have something to report. All eyes were focused on this imperial censor known for his iron-fisted impartiality. Speak. My father's voice was as weak as a thread. I want to impeach General Xiaoju of the General of the Cavalry for improper recommendation and using the wrong person. As soon as these words came out, the whole hall was shocked. Xiaoju's face turned ashen in an instant. Wei Zheng, don't you dare slander me, he shouted angrily. Wei Zheng didn't even look at him, but just faced the dragon throne and said loudly, Your Majesty, I have conclusive evidence to prove that Wang Qi, recommended by General Xiao, is of improper conduct and morally corrupt, and it is difficult for him to take on this important task. Saying that, he took out a memorial from his sleeve, which was presented by an eunuch. A month ago, Wang Qi, drunk in the city, rode his horse wildly, trampling on farmland and injuring civilians. Afterward, not only did he not repent, but he also used his power to bully others and beat the victims. Half a month ago, at the Drunken Immortal Pavilion in the south of the city, he fought fiercely with others over a courtesan, causing countless property damage. Every single incident is verifiable, with joint signed petitions from the victims as proof. Wei Zheng's voice was powerful and resounding in the Golden Palace. Xiao Ju's face turned from green to white, then from white to ashen. He never imagined that these trivial matters, which he thought he had already settled, would be brought up by Wei Zheng, and at this critical moment, dealt him a fatal blow. Your Majesty. He knelt down abruptly. There must be some misunderstanding. Wang Qi. Enough. The Emperor, who had been silent all along, suddenly spoke. His voice was not loud, but it carried an unquestionable authority. He slowly straightened his body, his eyes like lightning, sweeping over everyone in the hall, and finally, landing on Xiao Ju. Xiao Ju. You have disappointed me too much. In the Emperor's eyes, there was utter coldness and disappointment. The Western Mountain Camp is crucial to the safety of the capital. How can someone with such a flawed character be allowed to meddle with it? Wang Qi. Remove him from his position as Deputy General and never reappoint him. As for you, the Emperor looked at Xiao Ju, paused. Confiscate your salary for a year. Confine yourself for a month. And you are not allowed to leave the mansion without my decree. Thunderous wrath. Xiao Ju was completely frozen. He couldn't believe that the Emperor, who had always favored him, would impose such a heavy punishment on him for these trivial matters. Your Majesty, retreat. The Emperor shouted sternly, followed by another violent coughing fit. Xiao Ju retreated to the side, dejected. His followers were all as quiet as cicadas in winter, not daring to say another word. The Western Mountain Camp cannot be without a leader for a day. The Emperor gasped for breath and looked at me. Yining, in your opinion, who can take on this role? Finally, it was my turn. I stepped forward calmly and bowed. Your Majesty, I believe that Wu Qian, the commander of the Feather Forest Guard, can take on this role. General Wu is honest and upright, strict in governing the army, and impartial, with him guarding the Western Mountains. Your Majesty can rest assured. Wu Qian was a well-known neutral figure in the court, not belonging to any faction, only loyal to the Emperor. Upon hearing this, the Emperor's tired face finally showed a hint of satisfaction. Granted. A carefully planned power grab came to an end. Standing in the hall, the corner of my eye caught Xiao Ju's eyes, which were almost spitting fire. He must be wondering why Wei Zheng would suddenly attack. Why were the evidences so detailed? Why did I recommend Wu Qian at the perfect moment? He will never understand. Because in his eyes, I am just a weak princess who lives deep in the palace and knows nothing of the world. He will never know what was written in the secret letter sent to the censorate. Xiao Ju, this is just the beginning. What you owe me, what you owe Daxia, I will make you repay it, little by little. Doubled. Xiao Ju was placed under house arrest by his father, and the gates of the general of the Flying Cavalry's residence were tightly shut for the first time. Those outside couldn't get in, and those inside couldn't get out. This month might be a torment for many in the residence, but for Lu Ruyan, it was the perfect opportunity to showcase her abilities. With Xiao Ju absent and me, the legitimate wife, always disregarding worldly matters, the vast general's residence became her personal domain. The first thing she did was find me and propose to manage the household affairs on my behalf. Sister, she said, stroking her increasingly noticeable pregnant belly, her smile gentle and harmless. Now that the general is under house arrest, everyone in the residence is anxious. As the crown princess, you shouldn't be bothered by these trivial matters. Your sister is not talented, but I am willing to share your worries and manage the household accounts, so that the general can rest assured and you can save yourself some trouble. She spoke with sincerity, as if she were truly considering my best interests. If I hadn't seen through her ambition long ago, I might have been deceived by her appearance. She wasn't trying to share my worries at all. She clearly wanted to take this opportunity to firmly grasp the financial power of the general's residence in her hands. My sister is so thoughtful. I smiled and signaled the maid beside me to hand over the several large accounting books and a string of heavy warehouse keys that had been prepared. Since my sister is willing to work hard, then I'll leave everything in the residence to you from now on. I spoke casually, as if I were really throwing away this hot potato. A hint of triumphant joy flashed in Lu Rian's eyes, but she quickly concealed it. She pretended to decline for a while, before reluctantly accepting the books and keys. Sister, rest assured, I will certainly live up to your expectations. She left with the demeanor of a victor, completely satisfied. Eunuch Wang looked at her back with concern and said to me, Your Highness, why did you really hand over the power of household management? This Lu Rian is ambitious. I'm afraid. Afraid of what? I interrupted him, picked up my teacup, and gently blew on the heat rising from it. Do you think it's so easy to manage the affairs of this general's residence? Eunuch Wang was taken aback. The corners of my lips curled into a meaningful smile. Have you looked at those account books? This servant has looked at them. There's nothing wrong. Is that so? I put down my teacup. Then have you noticed that the son's charcoal shop, which supplies charcoal to the residence, charged 30 more than the market price last month? The Chen's fabric shop, which supplies winter clothes for the servants, delivered shoddy and defective fabrics. And the accounts for the kitchen's food purchases show a deficit of tens of taels of silver every month out of nowhere. Eunuch Wang was shocked. Is that really the case? Did General Shao approve of all this? He's a man. How would he care about these trivial matters? I sneered. These are just the old tricks of the stewards. They're taking advantage of my being new here, and holding on to their status as ultimers of the general's mansion. So they've joined forces to line their own pockets. I didn't touch them before because the time wasn't right. Now, Lu Rian has taken the initiative to jump out and manage the household. Do you think those old foxes who are used to their perks will easily let her succeed? Eunuch Wang suddenly understood. I see. You're using her as a pawn. No, I just want her to know. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked at the bare pomegranate tree in the courtyard. The position of mistress of the house can't be secured just by relying on your belly and a man's favor. The real show is yet to come. Sure enough, after Lu Rian took over the household management, the entire general's mansion immediately became chaotic. First, the kitchen steward cried and complained that there wasn't enough money for purchasing supplies, and hundreds of people in the mansion were about to run out of food. Then, the stable steward said that there was a shortage of fodder, and if it wasn't replenished, the general's favorite Akeltique horses would starve. Then, the warehouse steward said that several precious medicinal herbs in the warehouse were missing for some reason, all of which Lu Rian urgently needed for her pregnancy. In an instant, all kinds of problems, like snowflakes, rushed to Lu Rian. At first, she wanted to forcibly suppress them with Xiao Ju's favor, but those stewards were all ultimers in the mansion, with deep roots and complex relationships, and they didn't take her, an outsider without a proper title, seriously at all. They outwardly complied but secretly sabotaged her. Lu Rian was so exhausted that she lost a lot of weight in just half a month. She finally couldn't hold on and ran to me to cry. Sister, I really can't manage it. Those slaves, they all bully me. She cried with tears in her eyes, looking so pitiful. I was practicing calligraphy, and when I heard this, I didn't even raise my head. What are you saying, sister? I said lightly. You wanted to manage the household yourself. Now that there are problems, why are you blaming the servants? Is this your way of managing a household? Lu Rian was choked by my words and couldn't speak. With great power comes great responsibility. I put down my pen, raised my eyes, and looked at her coldly. If you can't even manage a mere general's mansion, how will you assist the general in the future and achieve great things? Lu Rian's face instantly turned pale. She finally understood that I had set a trap for her from the beginning. She thought she had obtained power, but in fact, she had obtained a mess. A mess that was enough to drag her into the mud. You plotted against me. She pointed at me, her voice trembling. I plotted against you. I laughed, laughing incredibly sarcastically. Lu Ruyan, you think too highly of yourself. Do I even need to plot against you? I slowly stood up, walked to her, and looked down at her. Put away those thoughts you shouldn't have. In this family, as long as I'm still here, you will always just be a concubine who can't be brought to the table. Behave yourself, and perhaps you can ensure the safety of you and your child. But if you dare to stir up trouble again, my voice suddenly turned cold. Don't blame me for making it so you can't even find a place to cry. Lu Ruyan was so frightened by the coldness in my eyes that she retreated repeatedly. Unable to say a word, she finally understood what fear was. Xiao Ju's 1-month confinement period ended quickly. The day he walked out of the manor, he looked much thinner, and his eyes had become even more sinister. He didn't come to see me. Instead, he went straight to Listening Snow Pavilion. Presumably, Lu Ruyan had already told him everything that had happened in the manor, adding fuel to the fire. I don't care, because I know an even bigger storm is brewing. During this month, Father Emperor's health deteriorated day by day. The Imperial Hospital was already helpless, only able to barely keep him alive with various precious medicinal materials. The court was in turmoil. Everyone knew that the sky of Great Xia was about to change, and Xiao Ju had finally revealed his final fangs. On the 3rd day after his confinement ended, Minister Li of the Ministry of Personnel, along with more than a dozen important officials from the Ministry of Revenue, the Ministry of War, and other departments, jointly submitted a memorial. The content of their memorials was surprisingly consistent, requesting His Majesty to appoint General Xiao Ju, the General of Agile Cavalry, as regent, to assist the Crown Princess in handling state affairs. Regent. These 3 words were like a thunderclap, resounding in the Golden Wan Hall. In the 300 years since the founding of Great Xia, there had never been a precedent of a regent from a different family. This was no longer a test, no longer a challenge, but a blatant seizure of power. They wanted to take advantage of Father Emperor's critical illness and my unstable foundation to completely hollow me out and control the government. What a fire from below the cauldron. The memorial was presented to the Dragon Throne. Father Emperor looked at the familiar names on it, trembling with anger, unable to catch his breath. He fainted on the spot. The entire court was instantly thrown into chaos. Xiao Ju's partisans immediately seized this opportunity. Minister Li was the first to kneel, crying with tears streaming down his face. Your Majesty, Your Majesty, please take care of your health. The country cannot be without a ruler for a day, let alone without a master. Now that Your Majesty is seriously ill, although the Crown Princess is intelligent, she is still young and lacks experience. For the sake of the country, for the sake of the people, please appoint General Xiao as regent as soon as possible to stabilize the hearts of the people. Please appoint General Xiao as regent. Please prioritize the country. Your Majesty. In an instant, a large group of people knelt down in the Golden Wan Hall. They shouted hoarsely, their words sincere, as if Great Xia would immediately disintegrate and the world would immediately descend into chaos if Xiao Ju could not become regent. The remaining few assistant ministers, as well as Wei Zheng and other officials loyal to the royal family, were anxious. But in this situation of heightened emotions, they couldn't even get a word in. Standing amidst the cries of pleas, I coldly watched this ugly drama of forced abdication. My gaze, over the heads of those kneeling, met Xiao Ju's, standing at the forefront. In the air, his eyes held undisguised ambition and the arrogance of one who was sure to win. He seemed to be saying to me, Zhao Yining, do you see? This is my strength. This is where the people's hearts lie. What do you have to fight me with? I didn't avoid his gaze. I just quietly watched him. Watched him and the performance of those clowns behind him, until Eunuch Wang and the imperial physicians carefully carried the unconscious emperor back to his chambers. Until the cries in the hall gradually subsided, I slowly walked to the center of the hall. My footsteps were light, but each one seemed to tread on everyone's heart. The originally noisy hall instantly fell silent. Everyone's eyes were focused on me, the lonely crown princess, who seemed to be toppled by the wind at any moment. Have all of you finished speaking? My voice was calm, With no discernible emotion, Minister Li got up from the ground, wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, and struck a pose of a loyal minister serving the country and its people. Your Highness, the Crown Princess. We are doing this for the sake of the great Xia's realm and for His Majesty's health. We hope your Highness will understand. Understand. I repeated the word softly, then smiled. The smile was faint, but it made Minister Li shiver for no reason. Minister Li is right. A country cannot be without a ruler for a day. I surveyed the crowd in the hall, my gaze sweeping over their faces, some excited, some hypocritical, some fearful. But Minister Li seems to have forgotten that my father is still alive. I, Zhao Yining, am the crown princess appointed by the laws of Great Xia, the rightful heir to the throne. My father is ill, and as his daughter, I should serve at his side. As the heir to the throne, I should govern the country on his behalf. This is filial piety, and it is also the law. But all of you are, at this moment, forcing my ailing father to appoint a prince of a different surname to assist me. May I ask, where do you place filial piety? And where do you place the ancestral laws of Great Xia? My voice was sterner with each sentence, and louder with each cry. Could it be that, in your eyes, I, Zhao Yining, am less trustworthy than a general of a different surname? Or are you saying that you believe the realm of the Zhao family is about to be handed over to an outsider? The last sentence was almost shouted out sharply. We dare not. The hall was once again filled with kneeling figures. This time, their voices carried obvious fear. Dare not. I sneered, my gaze like a knife, piercing straight at Minister Li. Minister Li, as the Minister of Personnel, you are in charge of the appointment and promotion of officials throughout the land. I am very curious. How did your nephew, who is doing tea business in Jiangnan, earn enough 300,000 taels of silver in just 1 year? And even acquire a large courtyard house with 3 entrances in the suburbs of the capital? Minister Li's face turned deathly pale in an instant. Your Highness. What are you saying? I don't understand. Don't understand. From my sleeve, I pulled out a small booklet and threw it in front of him. This records every transaction of your nephew's business dealings, as well as his private monetary exchanges with several officials of the Jiangnan Textile Bureau. Does this palace need to read it to you, item by item? Looking at the booklet, Minister Li looked as if he had seen a death warrant, collapsing to the ground, shaking like a leaf. The other officials in the hall, seeing this scene, were all terrified. The look in their eyes changed from the previous contempt into deep fear and dread. They finally realized that the seemingly weak crown princess before them was not the soft persimmon they imagined, ready to be manipulated. In her hands, she held the handles of them all. As for the regent's matter, my gaze slowly turned to Xiao Ju, who had been silent all along. General Piaoxi, you have worked hard and achieved great merit, and are a meritorious subject of our great Xia. But merit is merit, and fault is fault. Merit cannot offset fault. The laws of the country cannot be abolished because of one person. This matter, do not mention it again, otherwise, it will be dealt with as treason. The word treason was like 2 huge mountains, pressing heavily on everyone's hearts. No one dared to say another word. Xiao Ju clenched his fists tightly, his fingernails almost digging into his flesh. He looked at me, his eyes filled with overwhelming anger and unwillingness. He lost completely. The palace coup he had meticulously planned was easily resolved by me. I didn't look at him again, turned around, and walked quickly towards the direction of the sleeping palace. Father, did you see that? Your daughter did not let you down. This great Xia's country, as long as your daughter is here for a day, will forever be named Xiao. In the end, father couldn't pull through. After I repelled Xiao Ju's palace coup, his spirit seemed to collapse all at once, burning the candle at both ends. This was the final diagnosis given by the imperial physicians. That night, he dismissed all the servants and left only me. In the huge sleeping palace, there were only the 2 of us, father and daughter. He lay on the bed, already so thin that he was out of shape, and his eyes, once full of majesty and wisdom, were now turbid. Ening. He spoke with difficulty, his voice as weak as a flickering candle in the wind. Father, your daughter is here. I knelt before the bed, tightly holding his cold hand. Cough, cough. Good child. He looked at me, a trace of relief and reluctance flowing in his cloudy eyes. That day, you did very well, better than your father imagined. My tears could no longer be restrained and burst out of my eyes. Father, you knew. I know everything. My royal father gasped, a complex smile on his face. Xiaoju. I watched him grow up. I know his ambition better than anyone. I kept him in the capital and married you to him because I wanted to see just how far he would go, and also to see if you, my daughter, could shoulder this burden. Father. I choked with sobs. So, all of this was just a test he set for me. A test, with the entire nation as the wager. How cruel, and how profound. A father's love. You have not disappointed me. From under his pillow, my father pulled out a token made of black iron, and a small sandalwood box, and with trembling hands, placed them in mine. This is the military seal for the capital garrison. General Lin is my man. He will obey you. Inside the box is the imperial seal. From today onwards, you are the emperor of Xia. Ening. Remember, a ruler must not have sentiment and Eve, and less be soft-hearted. Xiaoju. He is a double-edged sword. If used well, he can expand our territory. If used poorly, he will hurt himself. How to deal with him? I give this power to you. His voice grew weaker and weaker. Father, promise your daughter that you will protect this Zhao family's empire. These were the last words he spoke to me, when the funeral bells of Changla Palace resounded throughout the capital. I did not cry. I simply quietly adjusted the dragon robe for my father, then stood up and walked out of the bedchamber. The sky dawned. An era belonging to me had begun. The news of my father's death, like wings, instantly spread to every corner of the capital. During the national mourning period, officials wore white, and the people grieved together. The entire capital was shrouded in a solemn and oppressive atmosphere. But beneath this calm facade were undercurrents surging. I knew that Xiaoju would never let things go so easily. My father's death, to him, was not an end, but the bugle call for his final assault. He would certainly take advantage of the instability of the court before my enthronement ceremony to make a desperate gamble, and I had long prepared a net of heaven and earth for him. Eunuch Wang would report Xiaoju's movements to me in secret every day. Your Majesty, the number of messengers coming and going to General Xiao's residence has recently tripled. Your Majesty, the generals of several military camps outside the city are being transferred frequently. All of them are General Xiao's old subordinates. Your Majesty, Minister Li and Vice Minister Zhang met secretly at Xiao's residence last night until late at night. Listening to this intelligence, my heart was at peace. Everything was within my expectations. The enthronement ceremony was set for 7 days later. I believed that Xiaoju would make his move within these 7 days. I handled government affairs, appeased the officials, and received foreign envoys as usual. As if I knew nothing about the impending danger, I even issued an edict ordering Xiaoju to keep vigil for my father for 7 days as a widow. This edict undoubtedly placed him under house arrest within the palace, severing his direct contact with the outside world. I want him to be anxious and flustered. People make mistakes when they're anxious. Sure enough, on the 3rd night of the vigil, something happened. Late at night, a team of imperial guards responsible for guarding the mourning hall suddenly clashed with another team of soldiers coming to relieve them. The two sides drew their swords and faced each other, causing a small-scale riot in the silent palace. The riot was quickly quelled, and the leading captains were captured on the spot. The results of the interrogation were quickly sent to my desk. They were Xiaoju's men. They wanted to take advantage of the commotion during the changing of the guard to secretly get Xiaoju out of the palace. A good feint to the east while Ada, king in the west. Unfortunately, they underestimated me. I looked at the trembling captains kneeling on the ground and smiled coldly. Drag them away and beat them to death with rods. Yes. The execution site was chosen just outside the morning hall. The shrill screams pierced the night sky, clearly reaching the morning hall. I don't know what Xiao Ju, kneeling before my father's spirit tablet, thought when he heard this sound, but I know that my counterattack has begun. The night before my enthronement ceremony, it began to drizzle in the capital. The cold rain tapped against the glazed tiles of the palace, making a drip, drip sound, making the night seem particularly long and cold. At midnight, Eunuch Wang quietly entered my study. Your Majesty. He has moved. His voice carried a hint of suppressed excitement. I put down the vermilion brush in my hand, raised my head, and a sharp light flashed in my eyes. Speak. Half an hour ago, about 3,000 of Zhao Kuo's old subordinates in the west of the city, under the banner of clearing the emperor's side and executing the empress, are advancing towards the imperial city. The remnants of Wang Qi in the south of the city have also gathered nearly 2,000 people, attempting to seize the Xuanwu Gate. The residence of the Piaoqi general is brightly lit, and Minister Li, Vice Minister Zhang, and others are all in the residence. Their families were also secretly sent out of the city last night. Clear the emperor's side and execute the empress. I chewed on these 6 words and couldn't help but sneer. He really knows how to find excuses for himself. Even at this time, he doesn't forget to throw mud at me. Issue my decree. I stood up, walked to the window, opened it, and let the cold rain hit my face. Order Lin Chong, the commander of the Jingji military camp, to lead 10,000 elite soldiers to set out immediately and completely annihilate the rebels in the west of the city, leaving no one alive. Order Wu Qian, the commander of the Yulin Guard, to defend the 9 gates of the imperial city. Anyone who trespasses will be killed without mercy. Order the commander of the imperial guards to seal off the entire city and arrest all family members of the rebels. If they resist, execute them on the spot. Also, I paused, a hint of ruthlessness flashing in my eyes. Send a team to surround the Tingxue pavilion, Lu Ruyan, and the bastard in her belly. I want them alive. As you command. Eunuch Wang accepted the order and bowed as he withdrew. One command after another was swiftly transmitted through secret channels to every corner of the capital. The great net I had prepared for Xiao Ju was, at this moment, finally tightening. That night, the capital resounded with the din of battle. In the west of the city, the Jingji Grand Camp's elite troops, led by General Lin, descended like a tiger from the heavens, routing the 3,000 rebel soldiers, who wailed and cried for their parents. Before the Xuanwu Gate, General Wu Qian, taking the lead, shot with unerring accuracy, turning the rebel soldiers who tried to seize the gate into hedgehogs. Meanwhile, the general's mansion was surrounded by 3,000 imperial guards. Not even a drop of water could leak through, when the commander of the imperial guards, radiating murderous intent, kicked open the main gate of the general's mansion. Xiao Ju and his band of henchmen, still dreaming of supporting the right emperor, hadn't even realized what was happening. Minister Li was still holding a wine cup, boasting shamelessly. When General Xiao ascends the throne tomorrow, we will all be founding heroes. Then, he saw the gleaming blades outside the door. The wine cup fell to the ground with a clang. There was no fierce resistance, no imagined bloody battle. Everything ended with unusual smoothness and speed. When the light of dawn pierced the dark clouds and illuminated the ancient capital, all the rebellions had been quelled. Xiao Ju and his gang were escorted, kneeling outside the Meridian Gate, through the long streets, and their families were taken to the Ministry of Justice's prison in prison carriages. Among them, in the most conspicuous prison carriage, was Lu Ruyan, her face pale and her spirit lost. The Qilin child in her womb ultimately failed to bring her a bright future. I stood on the city tower, coldly overlooking everything. Xiao Ju, the game is over. The enthronement ceremony was held as scheduled, wearing the elaborate and heavy 12-symbol robe, with the 12-stream crown on my head. I walked step by step towards the 9-dragon throne, a symbol of supreme power. Amidst the resounding shouts of "Long live the Emperor" from civil and military officials, Sunlight shone through the layers of the Hall of Supreme Harmony, illuminating my body with golden light. From today onwards, I am no longer Crown Princess Xiao Yining. I am the first female emperor in the history of the great Xia dynasty, the Xiaoning Emperor. All subjects may rise. My voice, carried by the eunuchs, echoed above the empty hall. Thank you, Your Majesty. The officials rose, their expressions solemn, their eyes filled with awe, and a hint of relief after surviving a disaster. The thunderous purge of last night had made everyone clearly aware of the iron-blooded means of this newly enthroned female emperor. Yesterday, a rebellion occurred in the capital, and thanks to the concerted efforts of all my loyal subjects, we were able to turn the crisis into safety. My gaze slowly swept over the people below the hall. I am greatly pleased. Today, as I ascend the throne, rewards and punishments must be clear, so as to serve as a warning to others. Convey my decree. Lin Chong, the commander-in-chief of the Jingji Grand Camp, and Wu Qian, the general of the Imperial Guards, have rendered meritorious service in protecting the emperor. They are to be promoted by 1 rank and awarded 1,000 taels of gold and 100 bolts of brocade. Grand Censor Wei Zheng, loyal and upright, unafraid of the powerful, is additionally appointed as the Grand Tutor of the Crown Prince, and bestowed with a golden fish bag. I successively bestowed rewards upon more than a dozen officials who had rendered meritorious service in this rebellion suppression. Those whose names were called all showed joy on their faces, kowtowing to express their gratitude for the grace. And those officials who had wavered or even secretly colluded with Xiao Ju were all terrified and sweating profusely. They did not know what fate awaited them. Finally, the rewards ended. The hall fell silent again. Everyone knew that the main act was about to begin. Bring the condemned criminal Xiao Ju and his gang of rebels to the hall. With my cold voice, a group of people in prison clothes, with disheveled hair, were escorted by the Imperial Guards and walked into the Golden One Hall. Leading them was Xiao Ju. He had been stripped of his armor and taken off his official hat. The once arrogant invincible war god was now as disheveled as a stray dog. He and his cronies were heavily pressed to kneel in the center of the hall. Minister Li, Vice Minister Zhang, and others were so frightened that their souls had left their bodies, and they kowtowed desperately, begging for mercy. Your Majesty, spare us. Your Majesty, spare us. We were all momentarily confused and deceived by Xiao Ju. Yes, Your Majesty, the culprit is Xiao Ju. He forced us to do this. When the wall falls, everyone pushes. The allies who had once vowed to share wealth with him were now, in order to save their lives, unhesitatingly pushing all the blame onto him. How ironic. Xiao Ju remained silent. He just raised his head and stared at me, sitting high on the dragon throne, with a pair of bloodshot eyes. In those eyes, there was anger, unwillingness, resentment, but no trace of remorse. Silence. Eunuch Wang's sharp voice stopped the wailing in the hall. The Minister of Justice tremblingly stepped out of the line, holding a thick dossier in his hands. Reporting to Your Majesty, the case of the traitor Xiao Ju's rebellion has been thoroughly investigated, and the evidence is conclusive. This is the evidence of the traitor Xiao Ju and his gang of rebels forming a party for personal gain and plotting rebellion. Please review it. Your Majesty. The dossier was presented. I didn't look at it, because every word on it was written by my own hand. Read. I uttered a word faintly. Yes. The Minister of Justice opened the dossier and began to read it aloud in public. The traitor Xiao Ju, as a member of the imperial family, does not think of repaying the imperial grace, but instead harbors resentment and relies on military power. His crime 1 is that he privately forms factions, places cronies, controls the government, and attempts to usurp imperial power. His crime 2 is that he bribes officials, embezzles military funds, privately opens salt and iron mines, and enriches himself with an amount as high as millions of taels of silver. His crime 3 is that during the late emperor's illness, he openly brought a mistress into the palace, forced the emperor and father, disregarded the sovereign, and showed no respect for the emperor. His crime 4 is that during the national mourning period, he forged imperial edicts, colluded with rebel armies, launched a palace coup, and attempted to usurp the throne. This is the crime of treason. One accusation after another, one piece of evidence after another, was made public, from the corrupt accounts to the clandestine correspondence, and the material evidence coupled with witness testimonies. Nothing was lacking. The courtiers of Her Highness listened with trepidation. They never imagined that Xiao Ju had been secretly engaging in so many shady dealings. And those rebellious cohorts kneeling on the ground were ashen-faced. They originally thought they had acted flawlessly, unaware that their every move had long been observed with clarity. When the Minister of Justice finished reading the last charge, the entire hall fell silent. Everyone was waiting for me to deliver the final verdict. Minister Li and the others had completely given up resisting, collapsing on the ground like puddles of mud. Only Xiao Ju, after hearing all the charges, suddenly burst into laughter. The laughter was filled with sorrow and madness. Ha 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 ha. Good. What a Zhaoning emperor. What an iron-fisted ruler. As he laughed, tears streamed from his eyes. Zhao Yining, I truly underestimated you. I always thought you were just a canary kept in a cage. But I never expected you to be a falcon best at disguise. I lost. I, Xiao Ju, have fought my entire life and never been defeated. But today, I lost to a woman like you. I am utterly convinced. But his tone shifted abruptly as he raised his head sharply, his eyes gleaming with a final spark. If you want to kill me, it won't be that easy. He took out something from his chest and held it up high. It was a golden, glittering plaque, a death exemption medallion. This is a death exemption medallion bestowed by the late emperor, he roared hoarsely. The late emperor promised in person that this medallion could spare me from death. Zhao Yining, do you dare to disavow your father's promise? All eyes were focused on that medallion. It was given to Xiao Ju by the late emperor himself in front of the civil and military officials when Xiao Ju returned triumphantly after decisively defeating the northern barbarians. A sovereign's word is not a jest. With this death exemption medallion, he essentially had a talisman. Instantly, the atmosphere in the hall became subtle once again. Everyone wanted to see how I, the newly enthroned empress, would handle this relic of the previous dynasty. Would I abide by my father's promise and let Xiao Ju go, to demonstrate benevolence? Or would I disregard everything and execute him to establish imperial authority? This was the last, and most difficult, test placed before me. Xiao Ju knelt on the ground, holding the medallion high, like a drowning man grasping at the last straw. His face wore a sickly, confident expression. He believed that I would not dare to defy the late emperor's decree. He believed that as long as he had this medallion, I could do nothing to him. Your Majesty, the late emperor's decree must not be disobeyed. Indeed, Your Majesty, although General Xiao has made mistakes, his merits cannot be erased. Please reconsider. Your Majesty. Immediately, several veteran officials stepped forward to plead for him. They were perhaps not Xiao Ju's cronies, but rather some pedantic, staunch adherents to ancestral laws. In their view, a monarch's promise was paramount. I looked at them, then at Xiao Ju's face, which was full of "you wouldn't dare," and suddenly found it amusing. Slowly, I rose from the high dragon throne. Then, step by step, I walked down the stairs. Each step I took was very steady. The bright yellow skirt trailed across the smooth, mirror-like gold bricks, making a soft sha-sha sound. I walked up to Xiao Ju and stopped, looking down at him. You think, with this, I can't kill you, I said, my voice very soft. The late emperor made a promise in gold, witnessed by all under heaven. If you kill me, you will break faith with the world. Be unfilial and unjust. Xiao Ju roared, his neck stiff. Is that so? I reached out and took the so-called death exemption gold medal from his hand. The gold medal was heavy in my hand. Engraved on it in relief were 8 large characters: loyal and brave, coexisting with the nation. What a great irony. I held the gold medal in front of my eyes, examining it carefully. Inside the main hall, everyone held their breath. Just when everyone thought I would be stumped by this gold medal, I made a move that surprised everyone. I grasped both ends of the gold medal with both hands, and with all my strength, I snapped it sharply. A crisp crack was heard. The death exemption gold medal, made of pure gold and extremely hard, was actually snapped in two by me. The whole place was silent. Everyone was stunned by my action, including Xiao Ju. The certainty and arrogance on his face instantly solidified, replaced by boundless shock and fear. He couldn't believe that I would really dare to do this. I casually threw the two broken pieces of the gold medal in front of him. The gold pieces landed on the ground with two crisp clang sounds, like two loud slaps, hitting his face hard. Xiao Ju, listen carefully. I leaned down, close to his ear, and said, word by word, in a voice that only the two of us could hear. The sword of the previous dynasty cannot behead the officials of this dynasty. The late emperor's promise cannot protect the rebellious traitors of this dynasty either. From the moment I ascended the throne, the great Xia has changed. Your death exemption gold medal is expired. After speaking, I straightened up, and with cold, emotionless eyes, I surveyed everyone below the hall. Guards, present. The traitor Xiao Ju, plotting rebellion and usurpation, is guilty of heinous crimes, and is resented by both gods and men. I sentence him to have his immortal bones removed, his cultivation abolished, and to be exiled to the dragon-locking abyss in the extreme north, never to step out for eternity. This sentence is crueler than killing him directly, for a proud and arrogant god of war like Xiao Ju, stripping him of all his power, making him live like a cripple in endless loneliness and cold, is the ultimate punishment for him. No, no, Zhao Yining, you can't do this to me. You poisonous woman. You poisonous woman. Xiao Ju finally broke down, roaring and struggling like a trapped beast. But soon, the imperial guards executing the sentence stepped forward, gagged his mouth, and pinned him to the ground. As for the rebel Li clan, Zhang clan, and others, my gaze turned to those officials who were already paralyzed like mud. As court officials, instead of serving the country, they helped the tyrant and participated in the rebellion. Their crime deserves death. Deliver my decree. All the rebels who participated in the rebellion, all, be executed immediately. Their property will be confiscated. The men within 3 generations will be exiled, and the women will be sent to the Jiaofeng division. Your Majesty, spare us. Your Majesty. A chorus of wails and howls echoed throughout the hall. I ignored it. My gaze fell on the last person who was brought to the hall, Lu Rian. She was dragged in by 2 strong palace maids. Seeing the gold medal broken in 2, and Xiao Ju roaring like a mad dog, she was completely dumbfounded. Your Majesty, spare me. I don't know anything. General Xiao forced me to do it. She knelt on the ground, kowtowing desperately. The fetus in her womb made it difficult for her to move, and she looked embarrassed and ridiculous. Oh, is that so? I walked up to her, looking at her face that was once beautiful and moving, but now full of tears and fear. I remember that in front of the late emperor's sickbed, you personally said that you wanted your child to expand the territory for Great Xia. Lu Rian's body trembled violently. I have always liked to help people achieve their goals. I smiled. But that smile made her feel like she had fallen into an ice cave. Since you want to contribute to Great Xia so much, then I will give you this opportunity. Someone, grant Lu Qianji a cup. Qianji is one of the most vicious poisons in the palace. After drinking it, a person will not die immediately, but will twitch all over, with their head and feet meeting, like a loom, tormented to death in extreme pain. No, don't. Your Majesty, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Upon hearing this, Lu Rian was terrified, and a stench came from her crotch. She actually peed on the spot. I frowned in disgust and waved my hand. The palace maid immediately stepped forward and forcibly poured the cup of poisoned wine into her mouth. Soon, Lu Rian fell to the ground, convulsing violently, and making inhuman screams. I watched coldly until she was completely silent. Then, I turned around and walked back to my dragon throne. Step by step, I sat down, overlooking the faces of the courtiers below, each filled with awe and fear, and declared in a steady and majestic voice, Let all of you take today's events as a warning. Prosper those who obey me. Perish those who defy me. Dismissed. That day. The blood on the golden one hall took a long time to wash clean, but the heavy smell of blood seemed to linger there forever, and it remained in the hearts of all officials in the capital. On the first day of her reign, Empress Zhaoning used thunderous force to purge the court, implicating hundreds. The ruthlessness of her methods and the decisiveness of her resolve shook the world. From then on, no one dared to underestimate this young empress. In the court, no dissenting voices could be heard anymore. My decrees were implemented without any hindrance. I vigorously promoted new talents, without sticking to convention, only valuing ability. Wei Zheng, Lin Chong, Wu Qian, and a host of other loyal ministers were entrusted with important tasks. I ordered the reduction of taxes, the recuperation of the people, the opening of granaries, and the appeasement of displaced people. I reformed the bureaucracy, severely punished corruption, and any who dared to reach out with greedy hands, regardless of their position, were severely punished without exception. In just half a year, the great Xia court was renewed, and the devastated country began to regain its vitality. However, occasionally, late at night, while reviewing memorials, feeling exhausted, I would inevitably think of certain people, certain events. I would remember the young general who used to write, "Seeing this letter is as if seeing me in person. Don't worry," at the end of his letters. I would also remember the eyes of my late father, filled with anticipation and reluctance. Eunuch Wang would thoughtfully drape a robe over me, advising me to rest early. "Your Majesty, it is late. Your health is paramount." I shook my head, pointing to the mountain of memorials on the desk, and said, "It's all right. I'm not tired. I cannot be tired, because I know that the path I am on is the one I chose. This path is destined to be filled with thorns and loneliness. This path leads to supreme power, and also to boundless solitude. I lost my husband. I lost my family. And I also lost the innocent and carefree self I once was. I gained the whole world. But in this vast palace, there is no one who can stand shoulder to shoulder with me, watching the sunrise and sunset together." First year of Zhaoning. Winter. The capital ushered in its first snowfall. After finishing my official duties, I ascended the highest observatory in the palace alone. Heavy snow fell, painting the entire forbidden city a pristine white. Looking out, the world was a vast expanse of whiteness. "Your Majesty, it's cold. Let me add a cloak." Eunuch Wang's voice sounded from behind. I did not turn around, but simply hummed in acknowledgement. He draped a warm white fox fur cloak over me. "Any news from Loch Dragon Abyss?" I asked softly. "Yes." Eunuch Wang paused. "I heard. He's gone mad." "Mad?" "Yes. All day long. He faces the ice wall, crying and laughing. Sometimes he calls out 'Your Majesty.' Sometimes Ning, and he keeps muttering things like wrong, regret." I listened quietly, without a ripple in my heart. Regret. The most useless thing in this world is regret. If he hadn't been blinded by ambition. If he could have been content to be his general of the cavalry. My husband. If only. But alas, there are no ifs. From the moment he knelt with Lu Ruyan before my father's sickbed, there was no turning back for us. Understood. I waved my hand. "From now on, you don't need to report his affairs to me anymore." "Yes." Eunuch Wang retreated, and I was left alone again on the star-gazing platform. I reached out and caught a falling snowflake. The snowflake was icy cold, and in my warm palm, it quickly melted, turning into a sparkling drop of water, just like those lost years, and the past that can never be returned to. I stood there for a long, long time, until my hands and feet were numb with cold. I looked into the distance, at the myriad lights gathered at my feet into a brilliant galaxy. This is my kingdom. This is my empire. I, Zhao Yining, the Zhaoning Emperor of Xia, will use my life to protect it. As for those loves and hates, grudges and entanglements, let them all be buried with this heavy snow. From now on, I am just a lonely person,